Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to speak about the current Jupiter-Venus square and its ongoing square for the next several months. This is not just a one-time square. Usually when you think of Venus, it's a day, right? But because Venus will be moving retrograde in Leo, and towards the end of its retrograde, it will be squaring Jupiter just at the beginning of its retrograde in Taurus, we have a unique situation where two retrograde cycles where these two planets really wouldn't necessarily in general spend that much time in the same aspect. So this is happening for a while. This is Sunday, so we're squaring at 5 degrees Taurus and Leo. And then we have in August at 15 degrees Leo and Taurus. This is just before Jupiter stations retrograde in Taurus. Then about a month later, just after Venus moved direct, and just after Jupiter moved retrograde, we have the final square. It's really meaningful to note that in the August square, we have, a couple weeks where they're really tightening in the orb of that first quarter square. And then still, it's like between that August and that September square, they're staying really close to each other. So August is, good 2.5 months from now. What this means is today's square is step one, part one of a 3-part process. Just want to point out too, this interesting pattern. I've mentioned before that, we have Jupiter stationing retrograde at 15 Taurus. That's where Mercury stationed retrograde more recently. And it's just interesting to note that Venus and Jupiter will square each other at 15 twice. In fact, it's 15 degrees, 18 minutes exactly twice. That's really interesting. 15 degrees, 18 minutes in September and August. So let's tune into the meaning of this. In general, a lot of people might regard Jupiter-Venus aspects as a very expansive, fortuitous kind of thing. That can often be the case. I want to really start off by saying I never look at any aspect as like positive or negative ever. And I really encourage we adopt the perspective that every transit, every aspect, every planetary pattern is inherently positive, and it's just another angle within. So it's always about how are we meeting it? How are we in relationship to the cycles that are unfolding now? Jupiter and Venus are very expansive, very abundant by their very nature. In particular, Jupiter in Taurus and Venus in Leo. So obviously we're going to be dealing with these archetypes, but I actually would say there's a lot of particular challenges and dynamics that are coming up right now. So I want to highlight 3 dynamics that I can actually see really emerging at this time that want to be seen. Remembering that Jupiter oftentimes will not just reflect these transits or these times where there's like this big promotional expansive experience. That happens sometimes, but more often than not, it's the opposite. More often than not, Jupiter transits will point to periods of time where things are really dysfunctional. Whatever is not aligned, where we're not honest or in alignment with our own self, where we're not in connection, in congruency with our way, where we need to see things and clear things, that will often be exaggerated. So things can actually get really difficult and intense in a seemingly non-characteristically Jupiter way, right? But it is. It wants to put a magnifying glass on whatever isn't in alignment so we can see it, be honest about it, like really see what's going on, have the adequate insight, and then be able to make changes and move on. I think this is really one of those times, in particular because we're dealing with the energetics of a first quarter square. Venus in Leo to Jupiter in Taurus. The energy of the first quarter square is always about pushing through the ice. It's like we're wanting to emerge. We're wanting to turn the corner into a new cycle of greater strength and actualization. So in the essence, Jupiter and Venus in this square does speak to an expansion of our own self-value, our self-esteem, our self-worth, our connection, our embodied connection to the joy and value and beauty of our life. And Venus in Leo wants that confidence, wants that sense of I am valuable, my life is valuable, I am deserving of greatness, of greaterness. Let me not stop short. Let me really believe in what is possible. Let me honor and value the meaning of my own life. And Jupiter says, go for it. There's a lot of opportunities here. But here are the challenges that I think might really be emerging now. I'm going to present them as learning curves, areas where we might be confronted to just become more aware and claim with greater courage, greater purpose, greater trust, greater faith, our unique value, our unique purpose. So the first one can be this quality of indulgence and stagnation. This is an issue with Venus, with the Taurus archetype in general. The energetics of indulgence is a kind of literal or psychological sense of isolation where we're going to seclude ourselves with the things that make us feel comfortable. That's a way of numbing out, and it's sort of a survival mechanism. It really emanates from a sense of I don't feel secure or safe or connected deeply enough to my own value to move out into the world and do what I love or give myself or share my resources, go for the life that I want. There's oftentimes a deeper grief and fear that we're not feeling or connecting to. And it's oftentimes just this sense of not believing in ourselves. The issue with Venus and Leo is it's really about believing in ourselves. Oh, but I'm not very different. If I move out there, I'm just going to be like everyone else doing the same thing. No one's going to appreciate me. I don't really believe in myself. I don't think I have enough talent. I don't have enough skill. With that Jupiter pessimistic mindset, just expanding it. I'm not really worth it. I don't really have the abilities. Forget about it. What else can one do when in a state of depriving ourselves from giving and moving forward towards what we love other than indulge? It's a very interesting psychology. When we're not giving or extending and moving forward from a place of joy and purpose, it produces inside a deep sense of lack because we know our fulfillment through the extending, the giving of ourselves. But if we're not taking those risks and believing in ourselves, if we have a low self-esteem, low self-worth, then we're actually going to just hold on to whatever makes us feel secure and will distract us. So indulgences and isolation, Jeff Green has often spoke about the Taurus archetype as the frog in the well. And the frog in the well is this analogy of the frog at the bottom of a well, and it has everything it wants, but being in the well, its world experience and scope of reality is incredibly narrow and limited. So if it gets out of the well, it's going to be exposing itself to all the things perhaps that it was not wanting to feel or experience. So it's like a paradoxical movement. The movement of Venus and Taurus in general, right? That energy is towards security and continuity and stability. So it's going to try its very best to hold on to whatever it can hold on to, even if it's not living, even if it's not feeling, even if it's just this sort of empty state of indulgence. And we really got to be mindful of that Jupiter and Taurus mentality if we don't believe in ourselves. How easy it is to prove that and to believe that and to just kind of get stuck in that. Again, many times things go really badly with Jupiter aspects, in particular hard aspects, right? Just to highlight our unuseful thinking. Okay. The other learning dynamic that we might be facing at this time would be kind of the opposite, sort of the other side of the coin, becoming very wholeheartedly engaged and interested in something that is a total distraction, right? Like learning about the newest cryptocurrency and just like spending all of your time researching, investing, putting a lot of energy into it. Not that in of itself is wrong or bad, but it's the energetic of going so far into something that it feels like, oh, I'm going to get something out of it. And we want to get more. Better analogy would be going to the horse race and betting and then losing and then be, oh, I'm going to bet again. I'm going to earn more. And the stock goes down. Like, oh, I really feel like this is an opportunity. We feel the sense of expansion and growth, and then we see the opportunity. And instead of connecting with this creative energy that wants to be nurtured and expressed, we directed elsewhere towards something that symbolizes some kind of expansion and growth. And we might feel the enthusiasm and the joy and the zestfulness and the joy. Like, we're going to get dressed up. We're going to feel really good about it. We're going to get really excited about it. But it may not be relevant. It's really about recognizing what is just flashy and shiny and produces within us a sense of excitement, engagement, and taking risks and expansion, but is just a way of still not giving ourselves the permission to connect with what's really inside, what's really calling us, where does deeper joy come from. So we want to really be mindful of putting a lot of energy into these, what will ultimately reveal itself as these very short-term, flashy, nothing much beyond the appearances, or just like gambling and taking a risk and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, kinds of experiences. The fall that comes from that has the potential to be very sobering, right? Imagine the fall after you've put so much energy into something that you were excited about and you had a lot of enthusiasm, and then, the stock, the cryptocurrency went down to zero, and you really thought it was going to go bigger, and you just spent a lot of time, energy, and money in it. There can be a sense of depression, right? We can always fight it and resist it and be like, oh, I got to compensate with that and find another thing to invest in, because if I don't gain something, I'm going to feel bad about my loss. Or we can come back to that Jupiter Taurus experience of, oh mercy, here I am now. This is just where I am now. And that sobering, there's nothing flashy happening in my life. There's nothing exciting leading into, I'm not very exciting. There's nothing meaningful about me. Okay. Like, there's something, right? Like, how are we avoiding our inner sense of lack? I'm not worth much, by distracting ourselves in all the things that we like to be distracted in. The third is a little bit of a different kind of experience, and I'll share it with a story. So recently we realized that there are rats that have nuzzled a hole in our oven, in the bottom of our oven. So with all the droppings and the smell, this rendered our oven toxic and unusable. We got the handy guy to come in, took a look, sealed the oven. He pulled the oven out, we cleaned all the droppings, and in the process, behind the oven, all of these lost gems were revealed. A bone we bought for our dog, that expensive, like long-lasting kind of chewing bone. We couldn't find it, so we did buy her another one, but we found the original one. Some other things, and in particular, my guitar tuner. This is like a high-end, very good quality guitar tuner that I invested in, because I was really determined to stop using my phone and the tuning app on my phone to tune my guitar. I was like really excited about that. So there it was. And these are like hidden gems and resources that we have that maybe we forgot about or didn't know that we have. I knew that I lost that guitar tuner, but I just kind of gave up on it, right? So this happens a lot when, things go wrong or things break or you lose something. And as a result, you engage in your physical reality with more consciousness, more thoughtfulness. How often have we had the experience of losing something and then cleaning the house as a result? And then in that process, you find something. I couldn't find my passport recently. So I was looking through a box that I have with all of my old journals, all this storage that I have. And I found this old journal from when I was 8 years old or so, where I wrote my philosophy. This is like to the psychologist that I was seeing at the time. I was really excited to like share my thoughts about this. My philosophy on homework, and why I thought homework was just like this huge non-intuitive misstep that we took. We're in school all day, sitting, right, engaging our mind, and then we go home and we have to do homework. And in that journal entry, I wrote things like, in the past, you would be collecting wood and building things, and going to school would be like an exciting or unusual or meaningful thing to do. And I just knew then that it didn't feel right to me, the amount of emphasis we put on homework and sitting with paper and books and writing and reading and knowing answers and studying and things like that. And I still feel that way. So it was really fun to read what I wrote then. So in the process of meeting what seems to go wrong, if we're willing to meet it, even if it feels messy, right? We'll find something new. And we don't always know what that's going to be. That's one of the gifts that Jupiter brings. Now, if we're stagnant, if we're not meeting, if we're not moving our energy, oftentimes losing something or there being a big mess, right? Something that really brings us into a much more conscious relationship to our physical reality will serve the purpose to bring us back into connection with all that we have, all that's meaningful. One of the best ways of stepping out of lethargy and a lack of joy and excitement about one's life is dealing with a real life crisis. It doesn't have to be a big crisis. It could be as simple as I just had this experience at a friend's house where a gallon of melted chocolate ice cream fell on the floor and seeped under 3 freezers. So I helped them to move out all the freezers. And in that process, man, there was a lot of poop and webs and gunk back there. So it was great. Like, that space was beautified as a result of cleaning up the spill. Had that spill not happened, all of the gunk behind the freezers wouldn't have been cleaned up. So, and that's a Jupiter principle. We want to clear ourselves of the past, of what's not necessary, to create space for the new. Clearing our space of clutter, of stagnation, of what we don't need, is sometimes one of the best things that we can do to create space for the new. We want to give a lot of attention to that. Where our lives are grounded in these dysfunctional rhythms that are not bringing life and joy. And I think there's just an opportunity, an invitation not to get dissuaded, right? Not to distract ourselves, but to lean into it, show up for it, address it. And it's very likely in that addressing it, a lot more will be revealed. You know, it's like the more we give attention to it, we think it's one thing, but it's really everything. And sometimes we just need to come back to just living in this moment, connecting with our life. Venus in Leo, squaring Jupiter in Taurus during this time, wants us to turn the corner of personal capacity and potential. It wants us to believe in ourselves. It wants us to take risks. But we have to let go of the old ways of avoiding ourselves and running away from feeling. We want to let go of the distraction. So bringing beauty and purpose and meaning and joy and celebration into our life in whatever small ways we can, by just addressing the small ways where we are not, I think is a very beautiful way to be nurturing this growth right now. What do you feel called into? What might you be afraid of? What is it like to just lean into it a little bit right now?